Hello, everyone. I'm getting started now. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to all of you. Glad to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Ingrid Justice. I'm the Director of Marketing at HighScope Educational Research Foundation. HighScope is excited to support the NAEYC Virtual Institute with HighScope Early Ed Talks, moderated by NAEYC CEO Rhian Allvin. Before I introduce Rhian, I would like to remind you that all participants are muted at this time. We will have a short question and answer session after each presenter. If you would like to ask the presenter a question, please type it in the Q&A box. This session is being recorded. You will receive a certificate of attendance and any handouts in your email 24 hours after this presentation. You will also receive a link to the recording. At this time, I'd like to introduce Rhian. Hi, Rhian.
Hi, Ingrid.
How are you?
Great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Rhian Allvin serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the National Association for the Education of Young Children since August 2013. NAEYC's mission is to promote high-quality early learning for all children birth through age 8 by connecting practice, policy, and research. During Rhian's tenure, NAEYC has successfully completed a dramatic structural transformation to better serve members nationally and at the state and local levels, exert strong policy and advocacy leadership, and streamline NAEYC's early childhood program accreditation system to decisively and accessibly define early childhood program quality. Welcome, Rhian. I'm so glad to have you here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Ingrid. And let me also extend my greetings to everyone across the country. We're thrilled that you're joining us to HighScope Early Ed Talks. The format of today's presentation is inspired by the infamous TED Talks. HighScope started these Early Ed Talks at their 2019 conference, where I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the first panelists. It was so much fun and super invigorating. I got to discuss a range of topics in a short amount of time. And so it was so great, I agreed to facilitate today's session. Today, we have a panel of 3 experts who will share the work they're doing to revolutionize learning for our youngest learners. I will introduce you to our panel in just a moment. First, I want to share how pleased all of us at NAEYC are to be part of this innovative presentation. And we're even more excited that HighScope is sharing this presentation as part of this summer's NAEYC Virtual Institute. HighScope is one of the generous sponsors who helped make it possible for NAEYC to present the 6-week Virtual Institute free of charge. Thank you, HighScope. We consider this to be an important way that we recognize our educators and families during these challenging times. And it's because of amazing partners like HighScope that we can share the more than 120 Virtual Institute sessions like this one without any fees. I welcome you to visit NAEYC.org to experience more of the sessions before they close this Friday. NAEYC and HighScope share a common goal of providing accessible, quality, early education for every child. And I'm proud to stand with our colleagues at HighScope and you, our educators on the front line in this very critical mission. So let's get to it. I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'd like to welcome Isabela Robinson, Audra Kubat, and Karalyn Huey. Each will present for 10 minutes, followed by a 5-minute discussion based on the questions you enter into the chat. First, we'll hear from Isabela, who's with Pre-K International. Her presentation is titled, "Are You Willing to Flip the Learning Environment?" Welcome, Isabela. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind presentation. I'm going to be sharing my screen too with you with a little PowerPoint. So bear with me while I prepare this. It's such an honor to be here today. Here at Brigade International, we use the HighScope curriculum since we start our center. It was a no-brainer to choose this curriculum because it aligns with our community needs. We serve mostly the at-risk community in town, and the program is designed to provide high-quality education to all families. So that's what we try to do here at Pre-K International. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about how it looks like when we have such a diverse population. This is going to change from season to season. So right here, we are also a GSRP program and a Casey Ready Force program. So we are really, really fortunate to have great partners in the community that make it all available for free as well. So our families, they do not pay tuition. Sometimes they pay a fee to the state, but it's possible for us to provide powerful connections because of the generosity of our community. And it really comes to connections with the community. It's really fascinating how powerful, meaningful connections with families, they can express positive reactions inside of the classroom and outside. So in order to provide high quality services, we start by connecting with the families. So at the moment of enrollment, we get to know the families. A lot of our families are in situation of transition, homeless, or simply they're immigrants and they have little understanding of the culture or limited language skills. So then we provide language services. We try to meet the family where they are. And of course, that can get a little expensive. But if you make those connections with the community, it's all possible. And it works almost like magic because you don't need to provide the service if another nonprofit organization is providing that too. And then in partnership, you create that cooperation that's so important for the families and is so important for the kids because it really takes a village. So what is family culture, right? It's such a broad meaning. When we talk about family culture, generally we go straight to the gender, race, geographic boundaries, but it's so much deeper than that. When we try to reproduce that in the classroom, it really narrows down to what experience those families have inside of their house or inside of their relationship with each other. Because remember, some of our families don't even have a house, but they still have a family culture. So it's really important that in the first few contacts that we have with the family, that we pay attention to their interactions and we pay attention to their to what they value. So, like for example, some families value Easter a lot, and they value that that gathering and the eating and the food. And some other families are more interested in the academics, and they're more interested in what is my daughter's gonna learn and what are they gonna learn. But no matter what the trigger is for each family, they all have one thing in common. They wanted the well-being of their kids. And when we talk about well-being, we talk about love. So if we decorate the room with love and intention, with each child in mind, with each family in mind, we're halfway there. So in these pictures, you have example of a dish, just to remind us to incorporate elements of their cuisine in our menu. Some centers can do that, others cannot. I remember when I started, we had a home daycare and we were able to bake rolls in the morning. So then as the families arrived, it had this baking aroma in the house. And then it was a way of having the children feel welcome in a certain way. They knew that was the morning smell. And then we also cooked the meal in the school, and it was made geared towards the children that we had there. So right now we have a lot of Latino families, a lot of African families, and rice is a big part of their diet. So we ask our caterer to provide that in our meal. So then they have the familiar texture, the familiar ingredient in their meal. But then we also have a diverse need in the community. And right now, it's all year round health and safety. So no matter what you're dealing with, you have to address that need, that is the community need for safety, and include that in your classroom with love. So when you decorate, you put elements and traits that bring warmth, and it does not need to be expensive. You can get it from Goodwill. This is some simple. I try to keep with earth tones, especially at the beginning. We try to avoid overstimulating the families, the kids, but also represent them. So that's the sample of what we got. And I started talking about healthy and safety because then once we get all of those, we need to label and we need to include that into our areas. So this can go in the house area, this can go in the block area, or can go anywhere. Actually, this one went and became cookies in the market. So we can put things around pictures of arts coming from their country. Sometimes we ask for the families to send boxes of whatever they're used to cook at home. And anyways, and then if you include that in the classroom, you have to include labels. And nowadays, with the safety concern, we have to include face shields, we have to include masks, and then we put their names and their letter links, because those details, that's what express the law. So you go for the cute stuff, but you also need to go for the practical things. So then when we create the daily routine, we put the pictures of what's going to happen during the day, and you can get that package in the HighScope store online. And we've made extra ones that make the face shield, so then they know when it's time to put their face shield, when it's time to sanitize the face shield. Washing hands, because now we have more washing hands than ever before. And we put this sign also for the temperature checking. So those are details that we think about, and that represents thinking about the family needs. So sometimes it's going to be being more practical because we are in a pandemic, so we need to address that. Other times it's going to be being more fun, including a dessert, including something that is appealing to them. And it's important to remember that traditional family and non-traditional families is a term that's getting almost faded away. What is traditional anyways? It's really important to avoid the bias. So how do we work it out to avoid being biased in the moment we are addressing those needs? We do the home visits. Right now we do televisits because we don't go to their homes. And here we have a link of the form that we use to perform those visits. So then when we go to the home or when we call them, we make an agreement with the family where we say, what kind of experience you're looking for? What are you expecting from us? And the forms you can find in the GSRP menu, implementation menu. You can Google that, or later this PowerPoint is going to be available for you too. And then once you learn what their needs are, you're going to have to be willing to flip the environment. And sometimes that's not comfortable. Cutting those, it was not comfortable. Creating little boxes for their art supplies, it was not comfortable. It was very time consuming, but we had to do it. We even create little hula hoops for them to sit inside when it's time to read their book. So then they have their own space. So they sit inside of the hula hoop so they don't have to, they know what space is their space, right? And a lot of times things get in the way, such as the teachers can get worried about the PQA assessment, when in reality, the PQA assessment is there just to make sure that those areas are addressed, right? So it's really important to be flexible and to learn that sometimes when you interact with the community, when you interact with the families, your understanding of their needs is going to change. So here's an example. We did an interaction with the community. We went in the market, and the students decided they wanted to turn their sensory table into a Mexican market. So then they did a project, they put a list, and there we had to include elements of a market in there. And this was at the beginning of the year. So you see some shelves that are empty. So this can evolve as the classroom evolves, as we get to know the students better. So I know we are times about to be up, and I want to be respectful. So I'm going to wrap it up in here, but I just would like to say it's a great honor to serve in a program that follows the HighScope curriculum, because following this guideline makes it so much easier to implement those high quality techniques. You see here the labeling and everything, so it's really nice.
Isabela, thank you so much for your great presentation, and feel free to use the Q&A or the chat room in order to ask Isabela questions. We're going to chat with her for a few minutes. So Isabela, one question is, when you say children are able to attend your program due to the generosity of your community, does this mean by financial donations from community funders? One participant is asking.
Yes. So we do partner with nonprofit community organizations, and they raise funds for us. So then one of those is Casey Ready Forwards. So they get private donors, and they donate funds not only to our programs, but to other programs in our community, and also some of the services. So then they provide service such as speech therapy, initial screening, and then they help us connect with the dentist to help with the field trips like that. And then we also partners with KRISA that funds part of our GSRP program. So that's how we are funded.
Great. Another question from one of our participants is, do you celebrate holidays in your program? And if you talk a little bit about that.
So the holidays, it's really tricky. General line, no, we don't, but it depends on the classroom. So then during the home visits, the teachers get a feel for the parents. And then if all the parents are in favor of holiday celebration in that classroom, then they celebrate it in that classroom. So we don't establish a celebration for the entire program. We establish per classroom, and it depends on the group of students that we have in each classroom.
Great.
So it's always different.
Another question from a participant. In this area of the country, she's in Texas, The legal residency issue is real. How can we protect and assure families that they may be in constant fear of the community practices that might disrupt their family?
Yes, that's a concern with our families too. And it took with our immigrant families, it takes extra visits to bring their trust to us. We need to be very protective of their integrity. And we do that through connecting with different resources and different organizations and be private with the information as much as we can. Of course, we need to comply with the law, but we like to create an environment that's safe for our families. And I believe that's why we attract so many immigrants in here.
Great. How do you do circle time with social distancing?
So the circle time becomes, we don't do circle time, we do large group. So then with the large group, we use the hula hoops. So then the kids to stay in their hula hoops. And then instead of using just the carpet area, we expand that to the block area and all the other areas. So we had to rearrange our room and create more space. We had to take some furniture out and to create space for the hula hoops. So then the kids are inside of their hula hoops during those times.
Oh my goodness.
It's a lesson. They need to learn not to swing in the hula hoops, but yeah.
Let's see here. There are many questions. They're coming in. You have a very engaged audience, Isabela. Let's ask one more and then I'll move to our next early ed talk. How do children play in the dramatic play area during the pandemic, and how have you adjusted the dramatic play area?
So the dramatic play area was heartbreak because we had to take all the dress up. We took everything out. We left the helmets that were that were easy to clean, the hard plastic ones, and nothing else. So we took all the dolls also because they had clothes. So we didn't want to have to wash their clothes every day. So we took the dolls away, and then we kept the wood blocks that look like dolls. But we had to make those adjustments and took away also the Velcro food. No Velcro food. So we only kept the food that was wood.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm noticing in the chat room, we have friends with us from Ireland. So you have a global audience, Isabela. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We're going to move on to the second ed talk now, which is Audra Kubat with Detroit Wolf Trap and Living Arts Detroit. Audra, take it away. Welcome to Early Ed Talks. It's all yours.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So I want to talk about music and how to bring music into your classroom and really kind of, as we're sort of struggling through a new format and ways to do that. It's complicated, right? So on Zoom calls, you can use this, but really kind of getting away from using recorded music and getting comfortable with your voice and using music for transitions, also to make book reading like more exciting. And so these are things you can do, of course, on Zoom with a book and your voice, and also with social distancing in your classroom. So yeah, so I just thought I want to kind of start with thinking about, number one, how to get your voice into your head voice, which is that really high voice that our little ones, because their vocal cords are small, they tend to sing in tune with you more if you use your head voice. So I always get my head voice, and I teach my teachers how to get their head voice by, you can call your kitty. That's a good way to do it. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. So if you're out there and you're listening, you can practice with me. Say, here, kitty, 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 and then suddenly here's your head voice. So this is your really high voice. And so you can practice that on your own, getting into that right space so that you can have your little ones sing along with you. And then, of course, using steady beat. You're probably already using this a lot in your classroom. And if you're on a Zoom call, I've been using my shoulders for steady beat with my little ones. But bringing the steady beat in is such a good way to just bring all that focus together. So the big thing here is, how are we using music to bring focus to your classroom, to sort of create rituals? And so I want to talk now about using zipper songs and using songs and melodies that are familiar to you. So you probably know Farmer in the Dell. It's a very familiar melody, and we could sing it together a little bit. Farmer in the Dell, farmer in the Dell, hi ho the dairy-o, the farmer in the Dell. It's time to put away, it's time to put away, it's time to put away the things we use today. So the idea of a zipper song is that you're taking a song that's super familiar melody-wise, and you're just you're zipping in a new idea. So a lot of teachers that I've worked with, they might not feel super comfortable with their voices, or a little timid, or it, can feel like it's kind of overwhelming or complicated. But what I suggest to you is to find one or two songs that you really like, little melodies that you feel really, really comfortable with. And Farm in the Dell for me is one of those songs. I like to use that one a lot for transitions. So you could even make a list for yourself right now. What are the different things that you might want to use a song like Farm in the Dell? We said it's time to put away. So you might be using it as a way to inspire your young ones, your little ones, to put things away. So it's time to put away, it's time to put away. So it's kind of, I use it for it's time to, and I like to use a little sign sometimes. Also, when we start to incorporate movement into using song, it can really help bring that focus even tighter, because when you're singing and you're also using your body, it's hard to be anywhere else, so you'll find that your little ones hopefully will kind of join you more when they get comfortable with a song. So it's time to put away could be, or maybe it's time to go to sleep. And this is where I like to talk about the way you could use your voice. And I know it's really condensed, this 10 minutes is really short. So I do have a little sheet you guys can take home. But so it's time to put away is like, that's an exciting, you want to get them, moving. And it's like, so it's time to put away, it's time to put away, it's time to put away the things we use today. Hey, right? But it's time to go to sleep. What kind of voice might you use? I want you to start thinking about, not only could you use a song like Farmer in the Dell for a million things, the way that you differentiate it can be just the way you sing it. It's time to go to sleep. 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 So you're really starting to think, how am I using my voice? How am I using really the three elements of music, which are pitch, how high or how low I'm going to sing something, tempo, how fast or slow I'm going to say something, sing something, and then dynamics, how loud. So something like time to go to sleep might be slow and quiet. It's time to go to sleep. It's time to go to sleep, right? And we can put all kinds of different things. It's, it's time to brush your teeth. 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 You can get into a place where you get really comfortable with one song, and you start to infuse names. We're working on kind of noticing our students rather than praising them for something. We see them doing something, right? I see Johnny putting away. I see Johnny putting away. I see Johnny putting away things. You can use a melody like that and infuse a name, so that you can use that to say, I see you, and use the tone to be like, is this something good that you want Johnny to be doing, or is it something you don't want him to be doing? So again, that's just like a way to zip an idea into a song. And for you, maybe Frere Jacques is a song that works really well for you. So yeah, so taking a song, making it your own, and using that for transitions is a really great way to just get music into your classroom all the time. So it doesn't have to be with Big Circle Time. And of course, I'm going to get to a little bit of like stuff with books that you might use in a Big Circle Time. And I love the idea of the hoops, like creating separation even more and using that space in the classroom now in a bigger way. It's really cool. So I'm going to bring a little book idea in here, and this book is called Walking Through the Jungle. And if you've ever seen it before, it's all these different little adventures. So, you know, when we get into book reading, we can lose our little ones really, really quickly, because, you know, when you just start reading something, you're starting to lose people. But for this book, I mean, I've used this book for like 7 or 8 different lessons. Every 2 pages is a different place. So one is a jungle, one is like the ocean, and there's so much to explore here. But the Walking Through the Jungle, it's a perfect, it works perfect with Frère Jacques. So walking through the jungle, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez. Walking through the jungle, and I like to use my hands, right? We can get back to walk. And I will even use the book as a backdrop often, to sort of explode out of the book, right? So walking through the jungle, walking through the jungle. What do you see? What do you see? And you might stop going like, well, what do we see? What can we see here? They might see the butterfly. Well, if they, you know, maybe you have some planned little creatures too. So they see the butterfly, you go, oh, it's a butterfly. Oh, I happen to have a butterfly because I planned this. But yeah, so you're walking through the jungle. What do you see? And then, oh, it's you see the butterfly, right? And so suddenly you've created like another layer to this, and you're just using that little song to kind of like keep the focus, walking through, get something that they can do with their hands, right? And we're looking and we see, oh, the butterfly. So the butterfly comes out. The butterfly, you can now even put the book down, and maybe you want to do a little another song. Like I like then transitioning, like I just put the book down and I say, well, there's a bee and here's a butterfly. B for butter, or, you know, maybe I have to switch it. B for butterfly, B for butterfly, butterfly. It's the same melody, right? Walking through the jungle, Frère Jacques, Frère Jacques. So the point here is for you to just think about, here's a couple songs, a couple melodies that you're like, hey, these are really good, right? So B for butterfly, B for butterfly, 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 right? Then you're like, okay, all right. And this is something you can come back to, like, we're gonna, you know, we'll go review like our bees, right? So we're going back to our book. It's so exciting, you know, it's like you can even take this butterfly and like say, well, let's make our hands butterflies, you know, then you can do a big body movement. So you can start to like incorporate using like big and small gross and fine motor skills in just this little tiny thing. We haven't even gotten into the book, right? So walking through the jungle, walking through the jungle, what do you see? What do you see? What are we gonna see? You know, it's like, and they've come up with they might even see another bird, so we could have like a little bird, and like, you know, oh, B for bird, we have a whole new song, you know, but what are they gonna see? Oh, it's a lion. I think I see a lion, I think I see a lion chasing after me, and then you can have a whole sort of talk about the lion. Maybe you want to explore the letter L. Like there's always all these different opportunities to sort of make a book really exciting through using a simple song and then sort of like reaching out through the book out into a letter song, an animal song. And that was all just Frère Jacques. I didn't change anything. L for, I don't have a lion here. I don't, but I have this picture of a lion. L for lion, L for lion, la, right? So we're seeing the letter, we're saying the letter, what the name of it is in the song, and we're also making the sound of the letter. So many wonderful things just from like 2 pages of this book right here. So that's kind of one example.
Audra, 1 minute.
Okay, good, thank you.
Sure.
So yeah, so I guess I want to leave you just with this idea that if you pick one or two songs, even one that you feel really confident about, and then practice putting like new ideas into them, you can make a song go a really long way. You can use it for books, transitions, walking through the hallway, walking through the hallway. You know, you could take like reading that book and that experience and moving it into a travel song. So that walking through the hallway, walking through the hallway, or we're about to walk through the hallway, what are we gonna do? So, and then the last thing I wanna just say is I really like to use the chime as a way to create a ritual, so that every time there's a new thing that you're doing, you have a little chime that you can use. I hope that was informative, and yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. A lot of engagement in the chat and on Q&A, so thank you so much. So I have a few questions from our participants for you, Audra. The first one, when you use music, especially with circle time, do you use a cappella or a CD? This participant felt like they were losing some of the special education students when singing a cappella.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I think that, well, I like to use a drum a lot when I do big circle time. So I add the beat with my drum. I had my little drum right here. But having a drum with you can be a nice way to just kind of keep that attention, that excitement. And I like to go around too, if you were using one of those songs as a, you know, like hello everyone, you've got the drum, it's like, you know, and you could pass the drum and let everybody take a turn. But I get that. I think that's probably challenging. That's where probably practicing and feeling like just building up your confidence and like your voice and using your body to keep steady beat is just like a something to practice that I think will bring more confidence for you. But the drum could help.
Great. Next question is, do you find it helpful to teach the children the original version of a familiar tune as well as just using it? This person's noticed in recent years that children aren't taught songs as they originally were, and her fours were fascinated that Twinkle Little Star and the ABC song were the same, and they started making up their own words to the tune much more often.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. I haven't felt the need to necessarily do that, but I think it's kind of a really cool learning tool, you know, to be able to say like, this is the original song, and we can have fun and we can, you know, add different things to it as a way to just show even authorship, you know, that you have like sort of recreated like these songs and sort of give a nod to it. I think that's a really cool way to think about it. Yeah, I think it would depend on the song. If the song is like still appropriate, or still, there's some of those songs that are just like, what are they talking about? Yeah.
Great. In thinking about kind of your presentation and Isabela's, I'm curious about how you use these techniques in engaging cultures and family engagement as part of your classroom environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that you can bring a lot of that in based on the books that you want to use, you know. So if you want to focus on certain culture or just people of different backgrounds and things like that, I think it's really fun to like, and a way that you can do that is bringing it through the book. Also melodies, that if you feel comfortable with melodies that are not necessarily from your tradition and you want to like try some new things. I mean, there's definitely melodies out there that are super simple that you can go to. Even I've had people use old traditional song melodies that they felt comfortable with using. So yeah, I think it's something that you just have to be really thoughtful about and make that happen sort of through the images that you're sharing and things like that.
Great. Another participant asks, would you encourage writing the letters in the air or on the floor while you're doing something like the lion or the butterfly examples you gave?
I have done it with my imaginary finger. I mean, I think that like seeing the letter is pretty important, but then you could have your little ones create the L with their hands. They could create an L with their body. You can make it into like a sort of a multi-way. I mean, I think doing air letters too. I think both, you know, kind of maybe transitioning from seeing the letter saying the letter and then trying to write the letter with your finger could work nicely.
Great. There's been a few questions about people gaining their confidence in this, and you are a musician, and so you're so comfortable in doing this, and it just is so natural for you. Do you have any more tips in just getting, helping our audience to feel more confident and comfortable with their own voice as they do this with the young children in their classroom?
The first thing I would say is that I think that little ones love your voice no matter what you do. They always are excited. I've certainly worked with a lot of teachers that are like, I can't do it, you know? And I'm just kind of like, yeah, you can, you know? I mean, I think part of it is realizing that like there's nobody's judging you, and they all can just love you. They don't care if you're singing in key. They don't care if you, I mean, I've flubbed up so many times where I'm like trying to do like the tiny little seed, the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh wait, that didn't even rhyme, or you know what I mean? Like I'm coming up with stuff on the fly. And so I sometimes model for teachers my own sort of insecurities, or show them that like I mess up too. And it's like, there's no child that's like, that didn't work, you're wrong, you know? So I think that's the first thing. And the second part is, I think a little practice, taking one of those songs, a really simple melody, and just trying to put in different ideas to it. And there will be a sheet that has some of the songs that we did. So, you know, take one and try it, sing it to your, I mean, my partner gets overwhelmed because I sing all the time. And so, yeah, just sing in front of all your family members, and, you know, let them shame you, and then you can go and you won't have any fear.
I'm going to tell my teenagers that Audra gave me permission to sing all the time in front of them.
It makes me sad that people, like I talk to teachers and they say, oh, I don't sing, I can't sing. It's like, we just live in a society where we haven't supported each other enough just for our voices, but we all should be singing, or we all could sing.
Thank you for leaving us on that inspiring note. Audra, thank you so much. And I'm going to transition now into our final 3 of 3 early ed talks with our panelist, Karalyn Huey, who is a HighScope certified trainer. And Karalyn is going to be speaking about reflections of an early childhood coach, lessons learned and insights that I've gained on how to lead a successful life. Karalyn, take it away.
Hey everybody, let me start my little timer. I'm excited to be here today. I'm just gonna, in 10 minutes, show you how you can lead a successful life and have meaningful relationships with children. So let's just dive right in. So we might have differing definitions of what success is. And so I'm gonna share the definition that I resonate with most, and it's best illustrated through a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson entitled Success. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life is breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. So if success was a road, I think we'd be on the right one, because Emerson mentions children twice in that poem. So the first thing to do is to be happy. So Emerson says to laugh often and much, and it sounds kind of cliche, you know, just think positive, but mindset is everything. You change your mind about a thing, you're changing your life. So I believe that happiness is a direct result, not of our circumstances, but of how we view ourselves in light of those circumstances. The approach we take is largely a result of the lens that we're looking through. So my lens is pretty rosy on purpose, right? I got those glasses on. I'm gonna find the positive in every situation. I might get on your nerves with my positivity sometimes, but I do that mainly because, bottom line, it just feels better. I feel better when I compliment rather than complain, when I appreciate rather than condemn. So if you notice that most things in our lives, most things that happen around us, we don't have control over, but what we do have is a choice in how we see them. So why do some people see things in a positive light and others in a negative way? Why is it that every time I see my elderly neighbor, he feels the need to report in a 2-minute conversation on every negative thing he can? Who died, who is sick, whose house got broken into, who had an accident? Why is that? Because it's a habit. Habits can be changed or developed with focused attention. So you know that person who complains about it being too hot when the sun is shining, or too wet when it's raining, and that their back hurts and they're broke and they seem to always have the sniffles. And if that's you, start doing some reflection. This time of quarantine has given me more of an opportunity to appreciate. Some are complaining that they can't go anywhere. I'm happy to be home, right? I mentioned to my mother how happy I was to be able to do some things around the house, to not be so busy. And she commented that, you said that when you were traveling, you were happy to be traveling, when I was gone for about 3 months straight away from my home. But what good is it to lament not being home when I'm traveling and to want to travel when I'm home? It just feels better to line up with where you are, and choosing the good feels better. So when you get back with your children, have a renewed perspective about being able to work in a profession that's impacting the world. We're fostering the development of folks that are going to take care of things when we can't. It's a noble thing to do. It's important. And you'll have a better time if you focus on that truth instead of how early you have to be at work, or how little Johnny consistently runs across the classroom, or sassy little Susan is cussing every day, right? Think positive and you'll have a better time with things. So the second way to foster meaningful relationships with children and lead a successful life is the golden rule. So you don't know what the golden rule is. It is, as defined by Wikipedia, a moral principle which denotes that you should treat others the same way you would like to be treated yourself. For example, golden rule suggests if you want people to treat you with respect, then you treat people with respect, right? That's pretty basic. We should all know that, but we know that in our society and in some of our classrooms, that doesn't always happen. So in my role as a trainer and a coach, I've had the opportunity to visit preschool classrooms in many different settings and many different places around the country and some places abroad. And I've seen a lot of great things happening, some good things and some not so great. So there are some classrooms in a southern state that I won't name, but they have an environment or a culture really of directiveness and control, and really of shame if you're not following in line and doing what those in authority would like for you to do. And so that trickles down from the adults, it trickles down to from teachers to the children. And I noticed the effects of that trickle down are greater when preschools are housed in elementary schools. So teachers are held in high regard when they walk the hallways with their children in neat little lines and holding bubbles in their mouths and hands behind their back. Like, who walks like that? Would you walk into the store? No, you wouldn't. So I can hear the teacher say, oh, I love the way that everybody's being quiet. Oh, look who's ready for kindergarten. And I'm thinking, like, if kindergarten was prison, they would be ready, right? I was in a classroom and I witnessed a frazzled teacher attempting to make children stand in a straight line to go on their way to the lunchroom. So that task in itself is like trying to herd baby chicks in a line. And so I don't suggest it, but in her frustration, she physically took each child's shoulders and turned their bodies and said, face the front, face the front, face the front. I was mortified. I wasn't mortified just because of what I was seeing, but that she was doing it in front of me. So I could imagine what goes on in that classroom when there's not a visitor in the room. So I was there for coaching, and At the end of the day at our coaching meeting, I asked her about her decision to physically grasp the shoulders of each child and turn their bodies. And she told me that a certain curriculum had given this as a strategy, not HighScope. We know that, has given that as a strategy to keep kids focused. So I'm a HighScope trainer, so I don't really claim to know all the strategies that other folks suggest, but I really found that hard to believe. So she said that I was telling her one thing and the other folks were telling her something else. And I said, that may be, but would you want that done to you? Would you want someone to come by? Let's say you're standing in the grocery store in a line waiting to check out, 6 feet apart, of course, right? The cashier comes and because she wants her line straight, comes and turns you and tells you to face the front. You know that wouldn't have a good outcome. So if you don't want that to be done to you, you shouldn't treat children as anything other than people. So again, I don't claim to know other curricular strategies, but I do know that you should be nice. I do know that you should treat other people as you want to be treated, and that's period. And let's remember that children are people too. Also, we know we've all been in quarantine. Some children have had parents and caregivers that realize the value of conversation, of reading books and playing outside, but most children have not had that interaction away from school. And so when we are reunited with our young children, we have to meet them with the same understanding and compassion and regard that we want to be extended to us, to treat them like people. So the last way, and I got 1 more minute, is to be yourself. You want to be the real you. You want to be authentic. Children can feel your vibe and they can tell you if you really like them or not. They can tell if you're being honest or not. And it takes a whole lot of unnecessary energy to try to put on a show. I've observed teachers in classrooms that treat classroom situations as if they are flight attendants. They're telling children where to go, what to do, where to sit, where the exits are, right? So you want children to be able to know you, to share with you, because the better they know you, the more they're willing to share and the better that you can support their development. Now, if the real you is mainly disgruntled and cantankerous, just do us all a favor and don't work with children. I'm sure there's some different stuff you can do, maybe with some machines or something, I don't know. So I'm gonna end it with a quote by Roald Dahl. And he says, "A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. You can have a wonky nose and a crooked mouth and a double chin and a stick out teeth, but if you have good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams and you will always look lovely." So here's to looking lovely, to be positive, be kind, and be you.
Karalyn, what a great way to wrap up our early ed talk. I've got a bunch of questions in the chat room for you in Q&A.
Okay.
So the first one is a tough one, and what I was thinking as I was listening to you talk too. Say that the administration of a school has established that controlling, assertive environment. How does an individual teacher work to establish a positive environment without going against the administration?
Yeah, and I think that everyone, a lot of people ask me that, but people are in classrooms with their children, right? And in the hallway, you might have to play a little game. Yay, we're going to play the quiet game while we're in the hallway, but we still have to give children some choices. While you're in that classroom, nobody is looking at you being nice, right? Nobody is looking at you sitting kids at a table and restricting them to their little squares and telling them what to do all day. That is a choice that you have to make. That's a choice that you have to make and stand by what is more important. And if you can't answer the question why you're doing something, or if you would want this done to you, I say don't do it. And sometimes you have to stand up and speak out on behalf of young children because they can't speak for themselves.
Great. Another question, how do we address a situation when parents' values aren't the same as what we try to teach? So she gives an example of a group discussion about not hitting, and children who will say, you know, my dad told me if somebody hits me, I should hit them back harder. Like,
Yeah.
how do you handle that?
Yeah, and you know that goes on a lot in our community, in the Black community, and we want to, you don't want your children to be punks, and you want them to be able to defend themselves. But I do think that when we are practicing mutual respect for one another, we are sharing ways to deal with our conflicts. Instead of hitting, children come and they're going to hit because they don't know alternative ways to handle their problems, right? And so we're in school and we're all together and we're going to teach them those alternative ways. You can acknowledge, yep, that's what your dad told you, but we're going to try to do something while we're at school, something a little different. That's how I would handle that.
That's great. My last question, and then we'll bring the whole group back together, is there is just so much going on in our world right now, and it can feel really heavy. And we're dealing with, 400 years of racial injustice.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a global pandemic that has put the globe, in free fall. How do we keep a positive mindset and keep moving one foot in front of the other in such in a time where we're confronting so many wrongs, quite frankly, and then just unknowns with the pandemic?
That is a hard thing, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm feeling good all the time, because there is this thing called being human, that you have emotions and things bother me. But I do notice that if I sit and watch the news, which I do not, but when things happen, you can find it on Twitter, you can find it on Facebook, you can't really get away from it. And if I feel myself getting physically bogged down with things, I have to turn away. There are things that you cannot control. And so I don't try to control those things, but what I do is to focus on the things that I can control and the things in my life and the lives of my family that are going well. And so I think that problems will be solved when we look forward to solutions and not constantly be inundated with the negative parts of it. There's some growth, right? There's some progress that has been made. And so I choose to focus on that instead of watching the news every day. I don't watch the news. I know what's happening, but I don't watch it because it gets in your spirit, and it keeps me personally, it keeps you personally from being able to be the light that you can be in the world.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. It gets in your spirit. It happens to me. I'm like, oh, this is just so heavy. So thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Isabela and Audra to come back and join us, and Ingrid, and I will turn things over to Ingrid. But let me just say, Isabela, Audra, and Karalyn, you have made my entire week. What an extraordinary opportunity it has been to be with the three of you doing just amazing work on behalf of kids and early childhood educators. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be with the three of you today. And Ingrid, I'll turn it back over to you.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I was just sitting here just wrapped watching everyone and really enjoyed all three of you. So I want to wrap it up now, and on behalf of HighScope, I would like to thank our three panelists, Isabela, Audra, and Karalyn, and I'd also like to thank Rhian, our moderator today, and just so thrilled that we could all be together and that this worked out with all the cancellations that we lived through in the spring, and I was just really happy that I could facilitate this. Thank you to all the people that logged in and watched and participated and chatted in the chat room and posted questions and answers. It was really, I love watching the flurry of activity. While the presenters are presenting, it's fun to watch all the things popping up and see where everybody is from. So thank you for that. A little bit of housekeeping. Everyone will receive an email in about 24 hours with a link to the recording. You'll get handouts from Isabela and Audra and a certificate of attendance from HighScope. In addition, and you'll have a link to the recording, yes. In addition, I'd like to put a little plug in for our next, HighScope's next live event, which will be on August 6th. We'll be featuring a panel of early childhood experts from HighScope programs around the country. They will be discussing together how back to school looks from their program perspective as well as their region. So with that, I'd like for everybody to wave goodbye. It was so good to see everyone. Thank you everyone for coming, and watch your email for your link and your recording and your certificates and all those things. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye everyone.